there's been a huge richness of material this afternoon, and I want us to go away perhaps with 8 things that we could perhaps remember, but out of the 1,000,008 points which have been raised with us and which are very important, I think, for the future. The first is the point about the role of research. Deb started by saying that she was summarising 20 years of research into millions of student experiences reported on in thousands of programmes of research. And the use of the research base and what research there is for answering policy and curriculum questions is the first message. At least you can always ask, is there any research on this? Is it brought together? And can we listen to what it says, rather than just jumping in with another idea? The second one was the concept of effect sizes that Deb spoke about, and that was discussed a bit in the discussion in the question time with Manu. And this was an attempt to quantify what difference different kinds of practices made. And there were some questions asked about it in that exchange with Manu, about what that meant about causation. How could you know that the intervention caused the response rather than correlation? And also that some of these interventions taken in isolation made no difference, but sometimes they were part of a bundle of things which might reflect cultural significance. So, for example, the question about school uniforms, which we didn't come back to, is something we might like to discuss another time, because it could be of very little importance of its own, but it might be part of a kind of ethos that had other values. So the whole idea of effect sizes was not to say that A causes B in all circumstances, but the idea was to begin to encourage us to look at the nearest comparator to what we're interested in and ask ourselves some questions. And Deb's answer to Manu was very strong on that. The third thing is to remember the video that we had and remember the impressions we had there. I think the impression that I went away with was a little boy telling his mother what stage she'd got to in the reading and showing the bee going from hive to hive. That was a really imaginative presentation of a young child with an idea of his own learning, a 5-year-old, and it was a very gripping picture, and I went away to think about what that means in my context. The fourth thing is the importance of collaboration, and this was emphasised by Deb. She talked about collaboration between teachers, and she talked about collaboration between students. And it may be that the tradition of students discussing things with each other is one of the strengths of some of the Asian traditions that we can bring in some other contexts. So that was an important thing, and how to foster an environment. And this came up a bit in the question from the web about how can you get passionate teachers. Well, one thing is to have an environment in which they are able to collaborate, and the fruits of their collaboration are valued and get positive responses. So that's the fourth one. The fifth one is about leadership, and I think that's worth remembering and coming into in more detail. We talked about transformational leadership and instructional leadership, and my hearing from Deb was that she was not saying that one was right and one was wrong, and Li Yen was suggesting that instructional leadership might be more strongly the culture in parts of Asia, but the importance was the balance. And Deb's examples of leaders were not just school principals, but also included teachers as well. It was the leadership, dispersed leadership in the school, and how it balanced the strengths of transformational and instructional leadership. But she also encouraged us to think about the virtues of instructional leadership as well. That was the fifth one. The sixth one was about formative assessment and feedback, and this was emphasized for us by Li Yen. It was the importance in allowing opportunities for feedback to students about how they were doing and how they had done, and for the importance of formative assessment. And that goes quite beyond the question of examinations. And that is something I think we will want to come back to with you and with groups from other countries as well. I thought that Li Yen's example, the negative example she gave, was very disappointing, really, because it was the example of these students who'd worked through the winter holiday so hard, and all they got was just it was yi, wasn't it? It was been done. There was no feedback on how they'd done it with all that work and all the effort, and their parents felt let down as well, which was a very significant finding. So the importance of feedback and formative assessment was number 6. Number 7 followed from it, which was about examinations and teaching to the test. And we had a bit of a discussion about that in the question time. And I think that will deserve more examination by us. Because if there's one thing that is so obvious that we're almost not saying it, is the strength of the culture of examination success being important in this part of the world is very, very, very strong. And it's felt by parents, by school children, and even parents who want to support a more wider development of their children don't want to let them down. So there is a strong tension for them. And I think some of the implications of this on good teaching and learning we haven't yet got to the bottom of. And my 8th and last one was to leave us with a word from Deb, which was when I had said at the beginning of the day that it is difficult to translate visible learning into Chinese. She had said that visible learning is about teachers seeing learning through the eyes of their students and students seeing themselves as their own teachers. Those are the words that she used. And I think that one of the things that struck me was how much that rang true in all of our contexts, even if the way it works out in detailed practice is different. So those are the 8 learning points that I've taken from today. We are going to put the slides used by the speakers on the website, and I have promised, I'm telling my colleagues this now, I've promised that we'll send an email to those of you who registered to attend when that's done, to show you how to get onto it so that you know how to get the connection, and we'll make sure that you can get those. And I think that it's been a rich learning. It's asked a lot of questions, and I'm very grateful to our speakers for leading us through this and to leaving us thinking about an awful lot of things that we needed to think about. So on your behalf, another thanks to Deb and to Li Yen. Thank you very much.
I'll be very brief in closing. Before we give our final thanks to the presenters and to all of you, 5 very brief points. The first one is, this is the end of the day, but the beginning of further discussion. We have 20 further questions online, and I'm sure you also have more questions and more contributions indeed. I encourage you again to join our discussion group Cambridge Assessment Singapore on LinkedIn. If you simply enter these 3 terms, Cambridge Assessment Singapore, you'll be taken to our group, and I encourage you to join. We will take our further questions there, and we'll also post links to the materials on our website. The second point is, this is very much still early days for us in the development of our events program. We need to know what works and what doesn't work. We need to conduct an evidence-based professional development program, if I dare say so, and you can help us do so. There are evaluation forms in your packs, and it would be hugely helpful if you could take a few minutes while I address my points number 3, 4, and 5 to fill those in. The third point is, equally in your packs you will find our upcoming program, and I want to highlight 2 particular events that come up. One, thankfully, the question of what does all of this mean in a bilingual context was raised, and bilingual education has been and will continue to be a very important topic for us to address. It is both an opportunity and a challenge for many of the schools and our students in those schools. We're very fortunate to invite Dr. Peter Mehisto, an expert on bilingual education, author of a book on the topic with Cambridge University Press. He will come to Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam on the 25th of March to conduct a full-day seminar with us on implementing bilingual education, pedagogy, and management, which is very much a practice-based approach to what it means to run a bilingual education program. I would invite you to join us either in person or indeed online as we make the materials available after the event. And the other program that I would like to draw your attention to is on the 3rd of June on the topic of school-based assessment, where we will have Professor Kerry Kennedy from the Hong Kong Institute of Education leading a session with the second discussant in a similar format as today. My fourth point To those of you who have these, it was mentioned before that these are worth a fortune, and we would hate to lose them, so please do return them. Thank you. Finally, and number 5, coffee and refreshments are being served outside, and I would very much encourage you to hang around for a little while longer to discuss with your colleagues and indeed all of us. I'm sure there are many ideas that have been generated, and these days are not only about the content, it's also about making links and making new friends, and I would encourage you to do so. And finally, let us join one last time to thank our presenters, Deborah Masters and Lian Huang, as well as Isabel Nisbet as a chair, and of course, indeed, to thank all of you very much for coming and for your active contribution to this event. Thank you.